First of all, we are all starting with some relaxation in body and mind. So let us start by breathing in deeply and breathing out slowly. This will help us to get back into the present moment. And then we allow our body to fully relax from the top of our head to the tips of our toes. We can feel our head and forehead relaxing. Our eyes become softer. And we can feel a flow of relaxation going through our face, our neck and shoulders. We can feel our arms relaxing, as well as our hands. We can feel our chest relaxing, as well as our abdomen, our back and hips, as well as our legs, knees, feet and toes. Every part of our body is relaxed. So we can feel that every part of our body is fully relaxed. And once we feel we are relaxed, we can let it be. We do not have to spend too much time on our body. And we spend more time allowing ourselves to relax within as well. Allowing our mind to become open and spacious, soft, open. And our thoughts are like the water flowing through the pipes of the water. And we just let the water flow. We do not resist it. We do not follow it. Just like a pipe of water. Just allowing everything to happen naturally. But we don't get involved. We allow our thoughts to be. Whatever is happening in our mind, or whatever distractions there may be out there around us, maybe noisy neighbors or whatever may happen. We just let it all be, just like the water in the pipes. It comes, it goes, and it finally, when we do not get attached to it, it gradually disappears. Once we have been able to find some peace within, we continue with reconnecting to the center space within. At the end of our breaths, there is this place of wisdom within where we wake and where we fall asleep. We reconnect with the center in a soft and gentle way. Very softly, we allow ourselves to become aware of the center within. And then we gradually come to the end of this meditation as a way to prepare our mind for some teaching. We are becoming aware of the sounds around us, becoming aware of our body. And as we gradually get back to our senses, we remind ourselves once more that we can always bring the center with us wherever we go, whatever we're doing. We gradually open our eyes at the end of this meditation. Sappe Puttha Palapata Pache Kanan Chayang Palang Arahanta Namjate Je Narakang Bandhami Sapaso Sappaputta Anupavena Sappathamma Anupavena Sappasangha Anupavena Sata Soti Bhavantu Te. Okay, so hello, welcome everybody who's joining us online. I see a few names that I've seen before. Hello, Irena. And you did join from China. Okay, oh, that's dedication. And then we have Yup joining and Devrin as well. I think I saw Faison Janssen yesterday. And also Deluise, welcome. And Rom, I don't know who's Rom. Okay, of course, this is a teaching for Makai Georgia. So let me try to see who's there. Okay, now I can see you. Okay. Hello, everybody. How you all been? Good to see you again. You ready for the teaching, or do you want me to wait? Oh, somebody joined from the reunion island. Hello. Okay. Okay, well, let me just start. You're all very quiet there. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's start the teaching today. So there were some questions in the last some questions that be passed on a while back that whether or not with regard to doing good in Buddhism, what is that? What are some ways we can do good, or what is the meaning of doing good in Buddhism? So I have tried to review some of my notes on that part, and let's just look at it for a moment. So there's still a few more people joining. That's okay. Okay, let me just dive into the teaching. Okay. So the topic of today is I called it the roots of joy, which is has a meaning to it. I'm going to get back to that in a moment. So the roots of joy is about the idea of doing good in Buddhism. Okay. Uh, so basically, there's different levels. There's a bit of a feedback here. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to mute the tempo in Georgia. Do you mind if I mute you for a moment?
No.
Okay, because there's some feedback. Okay. So we get back to the teaching. So of course you must be familiar with some ideas about doing good in Buddhism. About you maybe many of you have joined some ceremonies already, and maybe you haven't. But anyway, it's maybe you want to join, and you have some questions about why we do certain things in certain ways. And when you get to know the idea of what doing good in Buddhism is about, it will help you to understand more about the culture of our temple and the culture of any Buddhist temple for that matter. So now I can't see you anymore, so I'm just going to change that if I can change that for a moment. Let me just take a moment. Yeah, now I can still see you. Okay. So in Buddhism, we have 3 levels of teachings. And these are basically all the Buddhist teachings are about these 3 levels of teachings. But this is to start to give you some basics. So the Buddha, he would teach at different levels up to every person's individuals, the choices you have, the standards you have in your life, and what you'd like to achieve in your life. So some people, they would merely be interested to make a good living for themselves and their family, to make sure that everybody was taken care of. And this I just called this being a good person, basically just being a good person, not hurting anybody, taking good care of your partner, your children, and so on. This is like the short-term goal, being a good person. But most of the time, the Buddha would teach more than that. Most of the time, he would teach about the good heart. In fact, most of the Buddhist teachings are about developing a better heart, developing a strong mind. So the Buddha would then talk about certain qualities that you can develop and improve upon. And these habits, the idea in Buddhism is that you develop these throughout many lifetimes, and you improve yourself every time. And so this is an important idea. Sometimes when you think about that, you have more lifetimes to go. You have some path, some aim to develop yourself throughout many lifetimes. But even if you are not certain about that, whether there is a thing like a next life or something like that, even still, the Buddha would teach about the importance of doing good and avoiding wrong habits, because he would say something along the lines of, whether you believe that or not, it's always good to do good. It's always helpful. It always makes you happy. It always makes you content with yourself and feel safe with yourself. These are the Buddha taught in this kind of fashion in many ways, many times. So he did not presume that everybody just believed in rebirth. Some people think that was the main belief in ancient India, but that is not the case. In fact, in ancient India, there were many people who did not believe in rebirth. But we know this because in the Buddha's teachings, some people say that. They admit to the Buddha that they not really certain about such a thing. So that's not a problem. But if you consider that there is more than one life, sometimes it helps to set your aim, and you kind of look at your own life differently if you know that this life is going to affect next lives. So this is just a side note. Then what we are talking about today will be mostly about number 2, a good heart, developing a good heart, developing a sharp mind as well as being the more deeper goal of Buddhism. But the highest goal in Buddhism is actually about meditation and attaining enlightenment. But today we will be talking about like the sort of goal which is about doing good in Buddhism. And all of these goals are connected to one another, because if we develop a good heart and a sharp mind, it will help us eventually to develop awakening, to attain the highest goal in Buddhism, which is enlightenment or awakening. So let's not get too theoretical. Let's move on. So it's important to understand that when we talk about doing good, it's like you have a place where you do that. So we have a Buddhist temple, right? And a Buddhist temple is a place where the monks practice themselves and educate the community. That's an important part of a temple. And many people realize that, but and also many people think of the temple as a place to learn to know yourself. There is a pun in Thai language in which we say that the word for temple, it can also mean measure. What? So these two words have a different origin, but the point is that temples are for measuring yourself. It's a place to learn to know yourself, to overcome your negative emotions and unrealistic perceptions, to really get to look at yourself. But I just skipped the second meaning of a Buddhist temple. And that is often something that we in the West are not so aware of. But in Asia, most of the time when people talk about the meaning of a Buddhist temple and why you would go to a Buddhist temple, they will talk about a Buddhist temple as a place to develop merit. Now, merit is a sort of standard, these days is kind of a standard default translation of a word in Pali and Sanskrit language called punya. I don't know if any Chinese-speaking listeners are here, but is also a Chinese word for that. But I will probably butcher it if I try to pronounce it. But this is a common word in all forms of Buddhism in Asia. So it means there's an energy of goodness in us. And when we ask any Asian person who is involved in Buddhism, why do you go to a Buddhist temple? Very often, more often than not, you will get the answer, this is a place where I develop merit, where I develop goodness. It's a very important concept in traditional Buddhism, but it's not so much emphasized in the West. The American author and Buddhist monk who was ordained in Thailand, his name is Venerable Thanissaro. You maybe know him by that name on the internet, Venerable Thanissaro, and also known as Prajan Jov. He's not the same monk who's the monk who is in our temple, who's also called Thanissaro Lompi Nicholas, different monk. So Prajan Jov, he actually tried to fix the situation by writing a book about the meaning of merit and so on, but it hasn't really helped. It's still not something that we often take much notice of in the West. Most of the time in the West, we kind of jump to the highest goal of Buddhism, which is about meditation and developing awakening, because that is kind of what people are mostly interested in. But this is a very important foundation. So let us just look at what is the meaning of merit in Buddhism. So if you ask many teachers in different traditions, they will answer in a similar way. Merit is a form of energy. Okay. Oh, I didn't know it was going to do that. Sometimes PowerPoint is more smarter than me. Just like electricity or fuel, merit is like a sort of fuel in the mind. This is the idea. And just like merit, it's hard to compare this, but as soon as we do something intentionally good, whether we say something good, like we go to our workplace and when we encourage our co-workers and we say something good to them, how you been doing? How can I help you? You say something good to your co-workers. This is something helpful and merit arises. Or when you are helpful, you're going to take care of your parents. You are generous and helpful to your parents who are a little older, maybe getting a little older, maybe a little bit more dependent. And then in that way, you develop a good merit. It's really those basic things as well. It's not only about the Buddhist temple. It's everything that is good in our lives that we do in our everyday life. And there is also opposed things that are opposed to merit. That is usually translated as demerit. I made a little typo there. It shouldn't read amerit, it should read demerit, which is sometimes called, you can also call it bad karma, but it's just slightly different. This is slightly different, but basically it comes down to bad karma, which is when we act out of greed or anger or delusion, it creates this negative energy inside of us. So some people may ask, well, how do they relate? How does this relate to karma? Well, it's similar, but it's not exactly the same. Karma is what we do, what we say, and what we think. And merit is the energy that arises as a result. And that energy is the energy that attracts or that causes these results of karma to develop in our lives. So it's like the energy that connects karma with the results of karma. So in other words, for example, if you go and you want to go to the temple and you want to meditate a bit, right? So you have this idea. Oh, don't know why it does that. So you have this idea, okay, I'm going to the temple and I'm going to develop good karma. And you meditate, and meditation is a good karma in a way. It's a good karma. When you meditate, there is merit, there's this energy that is created inside of you. And then as a result, you find that more clarity and more wisdom in your life occurs. This is the result of karma. Or when you go to the temple and then you practice some generosity or some volunteer work, you feel good about that. And then there is the result of karma that people suddenly also want to help you. And maybe it also results in you having more calm and wisdom, because that often happens when we do something good in the temple. Buddha, he compared merit with water and he did that in many texts. Very often when the Buddha talked about merit, he compared it with water. So there's actually a blessing that that Buddhist monks often give. And they also refer to merit as like a form of water. The text that we often sing when we give a blessing. Yatha varivaha pura paripurenti sakarang. That one. It is in that text, the Buddha, he compares merit with water that is flowing from a mountain into the rivers and then finally reaching the sea. Why did the Buddha say that? Well, first of all, merit is like water in that it can be accumulated. We can gather goodness every day by doing something good every day. And those good deeds, they help us to gradually develop this goodness within us. This good energy, and this good energy, this merit, it not only attracts good things in our lives, but it also purifies our mind. It helps us to find more purity within. This is a more the internal aspect that's also very important. Like you can hear many influencers these days, they talk about manifesting things, but they don't often emphasize this energy that you need to develop as well to want to accomplish anything in your life. You need some good energy in order to accomplish that. You cannot just think about your favorite car 10 times or 100 times a day and then your favorite car will come. That is nonsense. So when we talk about doing good, it's also about, that's an important part of it. It's also gradually helping us to grow as a human being, helping us to let go, have a more open mind, and to gradually also develop good habits, discipline, and so on. But I'll get to that in a moment. So it's not only about just manifesting whatever you would like to achieve in your life. There's more to it than that. Merit is also something that is difficult to measure, the Buddha, he said. He said it's difficult to see how huge and important it is to just do one single good deed. That's very difficult to measure, the Buddha, he said that. And he also said it can travel great distance. So when we do something good, we can actually share it with others. And that's why the Buddha, he compared merit with water that is coming down from the mountain all the way into the rivers and the seas. In the same way, we can share good deeds that we have done with others. Now, those other people might still be alive. So we might get back home and say, today we did some meditation at the temple, or today I did some generosity, or I helped with volunteer work at the temple. And then people who hear that and they are open to that goodness, they can feel that energy as well. It's like it's like we talk about things going viral these days, right? But sometimes we forget about the original meaning of viral being something that is infectious, right? But it can be like that, like the other person is influenced, affected by that energy. This is how merit can travel great distance. We can even share it with those who've passed away. This is the idea why many Thai people sometimes share merit by using in a ceremony, share merit with their loved ones who've passed away. And the idea is that even if they are very far and we cannot correspond, we cannot talk with them, or we cannot chat with them, but we can mentally share this energy, and in that way they will be aware that their loved ones are sending them good energy, and that in that way we also improve their lives and we also remember them. So this is another meaning of merit. And the Buddha also say it can delude. I don't know how to pronounce that one. I always say it in the wrong way. Delude. It can help for any wrong energy in our lives to become less impactful, to have less strength in our lives. Like, you may be a person who has had the habit of gossiping a lot in the past, but now you start off anew, and you only talk positively about other people. Now, for a time, that negative habit might still affect your life. You might find other people who gossip about you. This is like the karmic consequence of you having gossiped in the past about other people. But gradually, then we talk more positively about others, or at least we don't gossip about them. Then we find that gradually that demerit will gradually become less strong. And the good things we are doing is helping us to overcome that more negative past. So in Buddhism, we do not say that you can confess and in that way overcome whatever is wrong in your life. You can, of course, confess it. There's nothing wrong with confession, but it's not actually helpful in a spiritual level. I mean, you cannot erase the bad things you've done in that way, even if you regret them. That's not actually erasing anything. You can never erase whatever things you've done wrong, but we can start anew. And those things we've done wrong, they can gradually have less impact on our lives because we start anew. And finally, also, whenever we have a shower or we have a refreshing bath, we feel that water is such a nice, luxurious thing to have in our lives. This is also what the Buddha, he compared with merit, merit being an energy that gives us refreshment, gives us well-being and happiness. This is what the Buddha compared. So when we talk about a good deed, right, we have to also look at this idea of merit. Now, in ancient India, there were basically two ideas about doing good in ancient India. There was Atacharya and Dhammacharya. Now, you might that I don't have that on the slide, but even if you don't remember how to write that or something, it doesn't matter. It's just to give you an idea. So basically, the Hindus before the time of the Buddha, the ancient Hindus, they would teach that there's two important concepts. First of all, you need to have a just life. You need to lead a life of justice. You need to lead a life that is good, that is virtuous. And they called this Dhammacharya. So in Hinduism, this is still used, this word. And then the second thing is Atacharya. Atacharya means that you do something good for society. You help other people in some way, or you take care of people in society in some way. You provide benefit for others. These two were the main things that any Hindu had to do in the past. And I think that is still an important concept in Hinduism. And in Christianity, it's a similar thing. You have, when you talk about leading a good life, there is the 10 commandments, right? How do you pronounce that in American English? Commandments, right? Commandments. And I think some of you will probably maybe know them by heart, or maybe know a few of them. Some of them are about ethics, how to lead a good life, and others are about how to honor God and so on. But there's also 10 good works. that you have to do. Those are like the Atacharya of Christianity, right? So you have to feed the hungry, or you give water to those who are thirsty, or you give clothes to those who are without clothes, and so on. So this is basically the idea in other religions. Now, what did Buddha say about this? The Buddha, he basically said that instead of using the word Dhammacharya, he would use a slightly similar word, meaning harmonious living. Harmonious living. So instead of saying that you have to act in a justice way, in a just way, he would use the word harmonious living. And harmonious living in Buddhism is basically, I will come down to the details in a moment, but it's like an ethical way of thinking and living, being careful what you do, what you say, what you think. This is the ethics of Buddhism, and I'll get to that in a moment. And then Atacharya, the Buddha, he talked about generosity, talked about being good and doing good in many ways as well. But there was a certain third quality that the Buddha added, apart from doing good by giving and so on. And then number one, he also said you need to live an ethical life, just like Dhammacharya, but then he emphasized the harmony. But then he continued, he said, you also need to have meditation. And meditation was not traditionally emphasized for lay people. But we know from the Buddhist text that the Buddha taught about meditation to many lay people. He even taught it to other religions. So this is not a new thing. Some people say you cannot learn about meditation without becoming Buddhist. That is not respectful or something like that. This is like a discussion. Some people say you cannot learn about mindfulness without learning about Buddhism. Otherwise, it's going to be mindfulness, like McDonald's or something. It's like you're not really interested or something like that. These are fair questions, but actually the Buddha taught meditation to many people, even those who are not that interested in Buddhism. So he would teach meditation sometimes to some Hindu priest or something like that. This is all recorded in the Buddhist text. So some people, they want to know only about meditation, Buddhist meditation, but they don't want to know the rest of it. That's okay, no problem. I have people coming to my temple, coming to our temple in the Netherlands regularly, who do not have any interest in anything else apart from meditation. So I teach meditation, and that's perfectly fine. There's no problem there, because even the Buddha did that. But if you want to know the whole story, the whole package, the whole deal, this is it. So these are 10 items that the Buddha mentioned, but actually they can be summarized in the first 3. The other 7 are just like the details that come out of the first 3. You know what I mean? You understand what I mean? So like the first 3 are like the basics, and then the rest follows from it. These are like 10 ways of doing good. Just like I think Jesus had 8 good works, right? Jesus Christ. Well, maybe this is similar, but they're, like I said, it's not only about generosity to others. That is part of it, but it's also about living an ethical life and meditation. So let's look at the first one. Giving. In Buddhism, we can practice giving in many ways. Sometimes we give to repay somebody. This can be both very mundane, like we do something back for somebody who did something for us, right? This is not a very high intention. But it can also be like we do something back for somebody who's been very kind to us, who's been very generous to us. This is not like exchanging favors or something like that. It's not like you do something for me, I do something for you. No, this is much higher. Like our parents, we give something back to our parents. We do something for our parents, This is what we call patikarana, giving to repay. You actually think about all the good things your parents done for you, and you give something back to them. Maybe some of you have seen that inspirational video of the two guys sitting on a couch it's a video from a Greek filmmaker, and these two people sitting on a couch under a tree, and this is an old man and a young man, and the old man is the father, and the young man is the son, and the father says to his son all the time, "There's a bird. What is that bird? There's a bird there. What is that bird?" And then he asks his son all the time, what is that bird? What is that bird? And then his son, he becomes frustrated. He says, "I told you, it's a sparrow. It's a sparrow. It's a sparrow. It's a sparrow. Why do you keep asking me?" And then the father, he goes back into the house. He produces a diary, a diary that he wrote as a father when he was still a young father. And then he comes back with the diary and he shows his son, "When I was just a young father and you were just a very young child, you pointed at a sparrow and then you kept asking me, what is this? What is this? What is this? And I told you every time, it's a sparrow. And every time I told you with love and kindness for my little son." And this son, he was so moved by that passage in that diary and his father sitting next to him that he embraced him. And that's the end of the film. It's a very beautiful film, and you might want to look it up. So when we do something back for our parents, there's a wisdom in that. There's a kindness, and there is something deep in that. That's why we call it, this is a form of generosity that is like very deep, very profound. Then is giving to befriend. This is like when we give something to our friends, like when our friends come to our house, we take care of them. This is like basically hospitality. People come to our house, we take care of them. This is mostly with regard to our friends. Then there's giving to help. These are mostly with strangers, people who we don't know. We call this anukahadana, which means like you actually try to take care of people that you may not know, but you take care of them anyway. And sometimes you see a beggar on the street, maybe you buy some bread for that beggar, or maybe something like that, or you give some good money to a good cause. Then there's giving to purify. This is not a very well-known way of giving in the West. Giving to purify, or parichakadana, means that you give something in order to purify your mind, to get in touch with the spiritual source. So you can use giving in a way to learn and to purify your mind, to find inner wisdom and clarity of mind. So this is mostly this word we mostly use for religious giving. But normally in Buddhism, we do not say that you should only give to Buddhism or something like that. But you should see this as a form of giving to wise people. So when you have wise religious people in your life and you want to support them or give to them, then this is also a form of giving. And these are all important in your life. So when you look at these four, you can ask yourself, do these forms of giving have a role in my life? Do they have a place? Are they some part of my life? Sometimes you may not always be able to do them. Like your parents, maybe they are no longer alive. Then it's difficult to repay them. But there is always forms of giving that we can practice. When we practice generosity, there is 3 things that are important that we have to take care of. Like these are like the principles in doing good. In general, I think you can also basically consider this like a basic principle of doing good in Buddhism. You look at the gift you're using, is the gift that you're giving, is it honest? And is it fair? Now, traditional explanation is that you must, whenever you give a gift to somebody, it must come from a good source. It must be not something stolen or something like that. Of course, that makes sense, right? But it can also have other meanings. For example, if you give something, but your partner, maybe your wife or your husband, does not really agree with that gift, okay, maybe there's a problem there as well. The gift is not completely pure because there was some struggle in the process, some conflict. So if you have a gift that was obtained and given in an honest way and also without conflict, that is the best. And then there's the intention. When you have giving a gift, there should be a sense of mindfulness and also feel this connection with the person you're giving to. Now, sometimes when you give something, for example, to a beggar, you might not know that person. There might not be a lot of spiritual connection or something like that. But when you give, for example, to a good cause or to a religious cause, then that spiritual intention and spiritual connection becomes very important. It's also said in Buddhism, whatever gift you give, you shouldn't, it's okay to be aware of it and to recollect it often, to think often about the good things you've done, not to be arrogant or not to compare yourself with others, but simply to be aware of the power of that goodness. Because we have been trained in the West, we have learned in the West that we should not be aware when we do something good in order to avoid arrogance or something like that. But that's maybe it's good to be cautious about arrogance or to be not to be too selfish in our kindness and generosity to try to get something back or something like that. But it's still important that we are aware of the good things we do. So, and also generosity is most powerful if both the giver, like we as a giver, and the one we are giving to are both dedicated to spiritual practice. But these are some examples which you might come across. Now, some people ask me, can I invite the monks for at my house, or is that only for Thai people? And I tell them, yes, everybody can invite monks to their house if you have some special occasion. So in Thai tradition, it's customary to invite monks for generosity. So you can give a meal to the monks when you have a new house or a new company. Don't know if anybody is starting a new company here, or if you have a birthday. Or it can also be in commemoration of somebody who has passed away. Like last Saturday, not last Saturday, let me think, 2 days ago, I went to see, there was a meal that was provided by somebody who wanted to do a good merit, to do some generosity for her parents that had passed, for her mother that had passed away 50 days ago. So this is a Thai tradition. You do some generosity to commemorate those who passed away, especially if they're very important to you. When you provide a meal to the monks, remember that the monks do not eat in the evening. And also, you shouldn't mention the names. Like, I want to see Monk John or Monk Jack or something, or I want to see Lumpy John or Lumpy Jack. You should just say the number, because so in that way you're not showing your favor. That is a more considered more mature form of giving. Like you open yourself up to everybody. You don't feel like this is your favorite person or something like that. Oh, and people always ask me, can monks eat or drink everything? Yes, they can. Except there's one thing, this is a very old rule, but monks cannot eat horse meat. But most of the time in Thailand, this is not a problem because nobody eats horse meat in Thailand. But in Europe, we do eat horse meat. So this is maybe something you need to be aware of. And of course, monks and nuns cannot drink alcoholic beverages. So then we come to the second form of goodness, which, as I mentioned already, is more about moral principles than actually doing a good deed towards our fellow human beings. So when we are doing something good to like generosity or helpfulness, those are all like the most important. Those are all important. But this is more like the ethical principles. And the Buddha also considered this very important. This is known as the 5 precepts. They are 5 principles or 5 rules you can live by. Now, to start off, I have to say that there are many Buddhists who do not live by these 5 rules. And that doesn't mean that they are not welcome in the temple. But they are often emphasized by Buddhist monks and other teachers because they're very essential to Buddhism. And they are helpful in the spiritual practice. So first of all, it's important that you take this upon yourself as rules of training. That's what the Buddha used as a word. He used the word rules of training. You train yourself in good character, sharp mind, and a good heart. So, but basically they come down, they're very similar to rules in other religions. The first is not to avoid the destruction of life, which is about not killing living beings, like not killing mosquitoes or something like that. Or taking what is not given. This is usually, no, most of you, I'm sure, will never get involved in theft. But sometimes it may be more subtle forms of theft, like in your work, when you are not fair to your customers or something like that. So this is just something to be cautious about. Then there is sexual misconduct. That is a bit of a word that sounds a bit like a police report or something. But sexual misconduct means that you have a relationship with somebody, long-term relationship, and still you are not satisfied and you look for somebody else. And this creates problems in your family. So this is what we call sexual misconduct in Buddhism. False speech means like you are intentionally lying to somebody. Now, we all agree that that is not a good thing. But this may be a little bit less known, but in Buddhism also liquor, wine, and intoxicants are avoided as well. So this is something that in the West we normally do not see as a problem. Even in religious settings, there is sometimes wine. But in Buddhism and in other religions as well, there is sometimes this is very important because as the Buddha, he used the word wine, alcohol, they are the basis of heedlessness. They cause us to forget who we are. They cause us to forget what we are living for and what we consider important in life. Now, some people, they might find that it's a bit extreme to be so critical of alcohol. But we have to remember that Buddhism is all about mindfulness and meditation. We look for sustainable and important, helpful and healthy forms of happiness. That is the essence of Buddhism. So something like alcohol, it kind of provides a sort of cheap dopamine, a sort of cheap form of happiness that is kind of goes into direct contrast with what Buddhism believes in. Now, I hope I haven't offended any of you with all of that, but just to get to give you a full explanation. Now, the third one, as you remember from when we started, the third item was about meditation. Now, I presume that most of you will already agree that meditation is a good deed and that is useful to do regularly. So I'm not going to explain that much. because I think all of you will know that by now. So I'm just skipping that one. The fourth one in the list is reference. Reference I talked about before to the temple in Georgia and also to Dhammaka Europe. A reference in Buddhism is an attitude of learning. You like to learn and acknowledge the goodness in another person that you're learning from, or even a tradition or some symbolic thing. But it can also be like a good deed to do, not only an attitude, but also a good deed to do. For example, in many Buddhist ceremonies, there is ways we can offer something, or we can express our respect, our reverence, by giving something, giving candles, for example, like in this picture. And also to show respect by your body. For example, using this traditional expression is another way of showing respect. And that is what we call puja or puja. And these are all considered powerful forms of doing good deeds or creating merit. But it's important to know that it must come from an attitude of wanting to learn. That's why showing respect and knowing respect, they always go hand in hand. The attitude of wanting to learn and wanting to show respect is manana, means that you give credit where credit is due. You want to give honor where honor is due. And devotion, like you really feel like you want to be loyal to that thing or to that person. So in many Buddhist chanting, for example, there is a lot of emphasis on showing your devotion and showing your respect. But it's a way to train ourselves as well. It's a way to train ourselves, train our mind, become a better person. This is a very nice, cute picture of a kid who is helping in the temple to clean up the temple. I don't think he has quite understood yet how a broom works, but I guess he's on the right track. So this is service. Service is about doing good in whatever way we can. I think many of you who have joined today have already helped a Buddhist temple in some form of capacity, in some capacity. So if you are helping and volunteering in some way, that is also considered a form of merit, because we are helping a bigger thing to occur, to happen. For example, we're helping to in a ceremony, or we're helping to keep the temple clean, like this little guy here, or we're helping in some other way. This is what is called service. Then there is the sharing of merit. As I mentioned before, this is an ancient Buddhist practice. It's still very much practiced in Thailand, when you share your good merits symbolically by pouring water from like in a vessel. You pour it in a sort of vessel. You have a bowl, and then you pour something into that bowl. And this is what we call the sharing of merit. And so if you ever seen this, you now understand why. It's symbolic, because the water is a symbol that the Buddha used for merit. But it's not, it's simply a meditation that we use. It's like a tool to help us concentrate our mind. But the important thing is the mental attitude of wanting to share that merit with our loved ones who have passed away. Then there is rejoicing in other people's merits. This is also an important one. Whenever we see something with somebody doing something good, we can use that opportunity to express our congratulations, or to express our happiness with their doing good. So when you join a Buddhist ceremony, you might have very often have heard this word, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. This is this word. And sadhu in ancient India was used as a general approval. I agree. Good. is really doesn't mean much more than that. Satu, or agreeing, or agree, or like you say, yes, that's true. And then you might also hear the word anumotana bun, or anumotana. And that means finding satisfaction in, or rejoice in, or be thankful for, to appreciate, or to benefit from, to be pleased, or to enjoy. So it's a very broad word, and it has that meaning. So if you hear somebody say to you, anumotana, you can say satu. This is the way we usually communicate. And if you see somebody else is doing something good, you can also say anumotana to them. This is a very nice culture, and it helps. Everybody who comes to the temple, who hears people say anumotana, they feel like they're welcome, and they feel they are part of the temple. They feel they're part of the culture. And everybody who's doing the anumotana, they are happy to welcome the other person. This is how we are helping each other to create a spiritual family. So the last three of the good deeds are about listening or studying the Dhamma. Dhamma is a word that means Buddhism, Buddhist teaching, but it can also mean wisdom in general. So any source of wisdom, a book about wisdom from a wise teacher, can be Dhamma. But most of the time we use it for Buddhism. But you could use it for other teachers if they are very wise teachers. They help you forward on your spiritual and moral path, then that is also Dhamma. So hearing the Dhamma, like you're doing now, or studying the Dhamma, this is also one good deed and help you to grow in your life. Teaching the Dhamma means to pass it on to others. You don't have to be a monk to do that. Whenever you meet somebody, you can tell them, I learned something nice today. I would like to share this with you. This is a very useful thing to remember. And then there is straightening out your views, which means that you often use all the Dhamma that you learned to reflect and to think about your own life. I always connect this with the good habit of keeping a diary. If you have never tried that, you should try it. Keeping a diary every now and then, or maybe even every day, can help you to become more aware of your spiritual progress, can help you to overcome any bad habits you might have and develop good habits. Or even if you don't like to write that much. For example, Kunyai Ajahn, the nun who founded our temple, she was not a person who wrote a lot. Actually, she couldn't write because she was not educated in that way. But she was spiritually very educated. So every night before she went to sleep, she thought about her life, all the good things that she had done, and all the wrong things that she'd like to avoid in her life. The mistakes that she made, but also the good things that she'd done. This is how she reflected every day. This is a good way to develop ourselves in our lives. Sometimes we are running around in circles, making the similar mistakes. Once we are more aware of ourselves, we can really look at our problems in life. We can dare to look at our problems, or we can really give ourselves the encouragement, take the time to encourage ourselves. It can help us to move forward a lot. So these are the 10 good deeds that I wanted to talk about today. And now I just show them once more in the beginning. These are the 10. So giving, living an ethical life, as I already explained, meditation, reverence, service, helping, doing volunteer work, sharing of merit, and rejoicing in others' merits through Satu. And then hearing the Dhamma, teaching the Dhamma, and straightening out your views. So these are all good things to do. And if you have time and energy to do these every day, this is the best. This is what the Buddha himself said about generosity. He said, if beings, meaning people, if people knew as I know the results of giving and sharing, the power of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of miserliness overcome their minds. Even if it were their last bite, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared, if there were somebody to receive their gift. So the Buddha, he very much emphasized that generosity is such a powerful thing in our lives. But many people overlook this part. But if we are aware of this, then we really want to share a lot in our lives. And this is also another important quote from the Buddha. If a person were to do merit, were to do goodness, he should do it again and again. He should set his heart on it, for blissful is the accumulation of merit. And the Buddha, he would often compare this with water that falls down from the sky when it rains, and it fills up this ton of water, this, what do you call this jar of water. Like, this is a model from Sweden. Right now I am in Sweden. So I used the picture from a Swedish jar of water. And this is the idea. We collect goodness every day. We gradually develop goodness every day. We create new opportunities to do good through our words, through our actions. And gradually we build up energy, we build up momentum, and will help us make it easier and easier to do good. So this is all I'd like to share with you today.